Man, I love waking up on Monday morning and realize how blessed we all are. I know at least Lisa and I feel that way. We're blessed to have you all here. We're blessed to have to report on Donald J. Trump. We're blessed to have all the maneuvers that are going on to be able to report them to you. And simply for our community, for our friends, and for everyone who supports us, thank you. It means the absolute world to us coming into Thanksgiving. Man, we have a lot to be thankful for. But the line in the sand has now been drawn. Donald J. Trump on your screen did it, and there's no turning back. I'll show you some of the reaction to this line in the sand. It's just beginning. We have what now? About 60 days remaining until this man can hopefully have an opportunity to reverse all the destruction that's been put upon this great republic of the United States of America. 60 days. Seems like an eternity right now because of what's happening in the background, just a portion of what we're going to cover for you in just 1 minute. So starting with JD Vance, Trump's cabinet is now officially complete. We know the history of J.D. Vance. We know the position he will play in this administration, and hopefully it is not a backseat role, but he's one of many of Trump's cabinet officials now appointed. The next man on your screen, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Concerns me out of all of them. We'll see if Marco's really turned over a new leaf for now, but we have many to report on. Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, now appointed. Hedge fund manager, hedge fund billionaire, call him what you will, founder of Key Square Capital Management. Once worked on the Soros team, something we'll have to keep an eye on. But again, he worked for Soros Fund Management. He was chief investment officer there. Moving forward into the cabinet, though, Pete Hegseth, another firebrand. Meeting with a lot of controversy. Of course, we'd expect nothing less as he wants to make the military non-woke, and there's a major maneuver that Trump just announced relating to that exact topic. Pam Bondi filling in for Matt Gaetz, who let that assignment go as Attorney General for the Department of Justice. Doug Burgum on your screen. His role will involve leading the U.S. Department of Interior as the Secretary of Interior. He's been governor of North Dakota since 2016. He sold his software company to Microsoft for $1.1 billion, but this cabinet continues on. Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture. Of course, on your screen, Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. We talked about this one in great detail, just trying to keep you up to speed on everything that's happening. Lori Chavez de Remer, as Secretary of Labor. Everybody knows Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services. Who's the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development? Scott Turner has been, nominated. Many of these still have to be confirmed, of course. That's why the battle line is now drawn, the line in the sand. There's no turning back. Who will cross that line, we'll find out. Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation. Chris Wright as Secretary of Energy. Linda McMahon, of course, as Secretary of Education, there to dismantle the Department of Education by all intents and purposes from the rumors that are swirling around. Who's the Secretary of Veteran Affairs? Doug Collins. And of course, we have Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security. And that rounds off the proverbial line in the sand that Trump is now drawn. But then we have the reaction, don't we? The reaction of those like Jennifer Rubin. We've reported on many of her reactions, but listen in here for a moment for exactly how inaccurate her reaction is. Before we get to this reaction, which you can't miss, I need a favor. I need to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. You see, now we try to just give you all the news we can in the shortest period of time so you don't have to spend all your time researching. If you want even more news, I just don't ask for donations. No, I give you something in return. That something is restrictedrepublic.com. It's where Lisa Haven and I work daily to bring you the stories that can't be found anywhere else. Plus, we re-air all these broadcasts with no commercials and no interruptions. That is only at restrictedrepublic.com. Use discount code Independence right now. Get $4 a month for 2 years, 14 days for free. Best part, you cancel anytime. because we're that confident. Once you see news the way it was meant to be presented to you, how it should be presented to you, where we give you all our references and resources so you can verify for yourself, you'll go nowhere else for your news and matters. Get to restrictedrepublic.com today. Use your Thanksgiving holiday to go ahead and catch up on all the things you've missed, but are there. The catalog will take you a lot longer than that to get through, I promise. But nonetheless, we have a long holiday season. Help support us. Get there today. And also, don't forget to subscribe.
Because many of these people, including Tulsi Gabbard, have backgrounds that would never make them eligible for any government post, let alone for secretaries of these important government agencies. But I do think there are a couple things going on. First, I have to comment, when you put up all those faces, it was 1,000 shades of white. Have you noticed that? Remember,
I actually thought as I was reading them.
Just stop there for a moment. I don't know if MSNBC did this right or wrong. 1,000 Shades of White. Lori Chavez DeReamer, Scott Turner, Alex Wong. Doesn't appear that feedback's very accurate now, is it? So bad is it that she didn't expect this graphic to be flashed, so she quickly has to modify her statement.
We should certainly circle a few of them so that we can say this is the one I'm talking about now.
Yes, exactly. So here we have a little bit more diversity in the slide that you're showing. But the first one, which was the major characters, yes, it's 1,000.
There we go. The attack. No rhyme, no reason, no thought, no process. The likes of Adam Schiff, of course, coming out, going against some of these appointments, supporting Marco Rubio. Tulsi Gabbard, nope. Pete Hegseth, nope. Do I want to hear his voice? Nope, because it doesn't matter. Just one of many battle lines drawn. I don't know if you heard this interview. It's with the Denver mayor. Listen to what he says, and then we're going to play the reaction from Senator Rand Paul. Man, you think J6 was bad, huh? Just wait till what Rand Paul outlines what a reaction like this means.
About civil disobedience, you've mentioned that a couple of times now. Would you be willing to participate in those as the mayor of Denver? Would you be willing to go out and protest these things?
I would. If I believe that our residents are having their rights violated, if I think things are happening that are illegal or immoral or un-American in our city, I would certainly protest it, and I would expect other residents would do the same.
Trump's new borders czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that.
Wow. His residence. They're not talking about his residence. They're talking about illegal aliens. I don't know why this is such a hard topic for them to understand. Of course, we have our suspicions, don't we? This protectionism can only come for one reason. Is it about votes? Is it about support? Is it about your city? Is it about your labor pool? Well, Rand Paul tells you what this actually means when you hear these statements.
That the mayor of Denver, if he's going to resist federal law, which there's a long-standing history of the supremacy of federal law, if he's going to resist that, it will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And I would suspect that he would be removed from office. I don't know whether or not there'd be a criminal prosecution for someone resisting federal law, but he will lose. And people need to realize that what he is offering is a form of insurrection, where the states resist the federal government. Most people objected to that and rejected that long ago. So I think the mayor of Denver is on the wrong side of history, and really, I think will face legal ramifications if he doesn't obey the federal law.
Wow. Nice to hear people talking straight again, isn't it? No BS, no sound bites, no talking points, just law. And that is what they're running from, is law and order. It's something that he seemed not to want. So how is Donald Trump going to do all this? Well, he's got to be resolute in his position. Donald Trump to kick transgender troops out of U.S. military. And the left goes crazy. But it's nothing different than what he had already done. Biden was the one to reverse this position. Trump already had this position, so don't be surprised. First, don't listen to the mainstream media. But if you do, if you're just trying to tune in, which you don't need to, because I'll give you all the major headlines here, everything that makes a difference. But if you do, Understand this is nothing different than Trump already did. Biden simply reversed it. But how's he going to get all these changes through? He's going to challenge the constitutionality of a 1974 law that limited the president's power to withhold federal funds, called impoundment. If I so choose, or I see a program that money is being spent on, I'm going to impound that money from Congress and not allow it to be spent. This will more than likely head to the Supreme Court, but it's something he will need to do, especially with his Department of Government Efficiency, because spending is absolutely out of control. We have empty buildings in Washington that are housing no one. Trump has vowed to close the Department of Education. How would that work? He'd empty the building. I've never wanted the federal government in charge of our education, plain and simple, period. That is a state-run department. Each state should make its own decisions. With the federal government running education, how well have we done? Not well at all. We've fallen behind so many primary nations, it's not a joke anymore. We're more worried about agenda than we are education. And now Trump's DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is targeting such enterprises or offices. And they've identified the federal agencies that are ripe for overhaul. The to-be-established Department of Government Efficiency, this on the Epic Times, names several examples of what is called a waste of taxpayer money. It's not hard to find. Federal government agencies are using on average just 12% of the space in their D.C. headquarters. 12%. Your and my tax dollars are paying to upkeep those buildings, of which their occupancy is only 12%. So why'd you build the building so large? Or it's simply government employees not come back after COVID? We don't know, because they're not going to tell you. They gave the example of the Department of Agriculture. With space for more than 7,400 people, it averaged only 456 workers each day. That is a 6% occupancy, and you and I are paying for the other 94% to maintain heat, cool, provide water, sewer to those buildings. It is a waste of government spending, such an important department. As a matter of fact, digging in deeper, this report coming out of the Congressional Budget Office, published in July of 2024. I read this before. Sorry, I couldn't remember what date it was. Expired and expiring authorizations of appropriations for fiscal year 2024. In other words, we have authorized you money. However, you're no longer authorized to be a program or department or division. Summary of 2024. I'm going to go full screen so you get a good look at this. Summary of 2024 appropriations with expired authorizations. You are no longer authorized to operate. However, we still gave away $516 million to appropriations that are expired. That's what the House and Senate do. That's how they're spending our tax dollars. Just look through the list. How many? Number of authorizations, 409. Number of authorizations, expired authorizations of appropriations, 1,264, of which 491 received $516 million. And when I say the line has been drawn in the sand, they will identify all such abuses of authority, power, spending, law, and they'll be changed. But who's going to cross that line? The rhinos in the Senate are already rearing their ugly head, ready for a fight, picking a battle. Who will cross Trump's battle lines? There's many. Unfortunately, the Senate already giving power to those that don't deserve it anymore. Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, just name a few. Pentagon can't fully account for $824 billion. Department of Government Efficiency posting on this. $236 billion in improper payments in federal programs in 2023. $200 billion in pandemic relief that went to fraud and abuse. The U.S. failed to track $1 billion in Ukraine aid. Man, that feels good, huh? Man, how many of you are just trying to put food on the table for your families? And you see a number like $824 billion. You hear about buildings that are only at 6% occupancy, and we're paying for it. I'd like that money back, please. How about those that were avoided by FEMA? Did they get their money back from the taxes they paid for the government to help them? Of course not. Government's going to keep it all, isn't it? And then they post on this little snippet. Paul's out there again, trying to explain, and he has always worked to explain government wasteful spending. Listen in here to what they posted, and you'll get a preview of what they'll be looking for.
Gin to a sunfish versus tequila, which would make the sunfish more aggressive? Nearly $1 million spent studying whether or not Japanese quail, if you give them cocaine, whether or not they're more sexually promiscuous. Was it one small step for man, or was it one small step for a man? And in the end, $750,000 later, they couldn't decide.
I'm telling you, everything's coming now, huh? When this starts to get attention, and when this starts to get action, oh, they will rebel. But there's already forward action. I mean, even Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out, 438 federal government agencies and sub-agencies. The federal government is the largest employer in the United States. The federal government is indebted nearly $36 trillion. All of this is funded by you and me. And why hasn't it been torn down yet? Well, that's what the Department of Government Efficiency is to do. But how's Trump? How's Trump going to do all this? I just showed you ways and means that he has to do that. It doesn't mean they're not going to fight him at every turn. They will. As the naysayers are going to try to prove to you that he's ineffective and inefficient. He doesn't understand leadership because our foreign policy right now is going so well. So effective is Trump. The Mexican president has already begun to back down. Might be changing her views on the U.S. as Trump sends warning to the ruling socialists. They've had a phone call already. But that's only one of many phone calls that are going to be made because America needs to be treated with respect. And right now we have no respect in this country. Our adversaries don't respect us. They're laughing at us. And the Biden administration and his cronies are trying to, well, as Joe Rogan said, I'll just read his transcript as he went off on the prospect of war that is growing daily. And I'll show you why he's freaking out, because it's gotten far worse the more we're finding out what the Biden administration is attempting to do. They're trying to tug the tail of a sleeping dragon, he states. How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? What's he talking about? Sending missiles into Russia, authorizing it, but it's worse. Zelensky says Putin is terrified. F you, man. F you, people. Rogan going off the hook, upset about the prospect for war, upset that an administration that has been voted out by we the people, we have told them the job they did is not acceptable. How, with less than 60 days on the clock till the inauguration of Donald J. Trump, are they allowed to put us into war? Rogan loses it. That's why he's changed his position so strong. Russia says new U.S. base in Poland raises overall nuclear danger. I talked about this. But then who comes out and praises it? CNN. Biden authorizes Ukraine to use long-range U.S. weapons in Russia. A lame duck administration putting us into the thralls of war. Some would argue it's already there. U.S. missiles could help Ukraine strike military targets in Russia. And if that's not bad enough, we're going to give Zelensky this authority and power, a man who I do not trust at all. Now rumors coming out, validated by the New York Times, mind you. Trump vows to end the war that could leave Ukraine with a few options. But deep within this article is this statement. If you weren't nervous enough about a war with Russia, several officials even suggested that Mr. Biden could return nuclear weapons to Ukraine. You're going to give Zelensky nukes. It's in the article. The suggestion was there. They were taken from it after the fall of the Soviet Union. All nuclear weapons were taken away from Ukraine. Maybe we should give it back. That would be an instant and enormous deterrent. But, such a step would complicate and have serious implications, you think? Former Ukrainian defense minister said in an interview, for a successful ceasefire, Ukraine and its allies must reverse the momentum on the front line, so let's give Zelensky nukes. The line in the sand has to be drawn, or else we will be drawn directly into this war if we are not already. And we have less than 60 days to contend with all this. Hopefully Putin knows in less than 60 days, Trump will be in office. And when he's in office, the worst thing that Putin could do is get into a war with us. Biden, he doesn't care about. How could you respect the administration? You're going to give the psychotic Zelensky, again, in my opinion, the ability, or at least you were discussing, nukes. Oh, the line in the sand needed to be drawn. A deep, whole, straight line. And now we're going to have to watch who else continues to attempt to cross it. And how staunch and how strong now that Trump is locked in his cabinet, they are at diffusing all the landmines that have been set for them by this Biden administration. There'll be so much more to cover. I'll be with you all week. Don't worry about that. Holiday or not, we'll be here because the news never stops. And I'll continue to bring you all of the main headlines in one format so you don't have to waste all your time trying to find them. I'll do the digging for you. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.